famous Gemara, end of Makos. Shupa Machas Oya Olim Yerushalayim, Rabbi Kiva and three other Tanoim making the trip up to Yerushalayim. Kivichi Higir Lahar Tzofim, they came to Mount Scopus. Koru Bigdeihem, they tore their clothes. For those of you who know the story, it's important to notice, as the Maharsha points out, Rabbi Kiva tore his clothes also. Rabbi Kiva was in pain over the destruction of the temple, just as the other three were. They came to a point where they could see the Temple Mount, and they saw a fox exit the area which was the Holy of Holies. They started to cry, and Rabbi Kiva started to laugh. Even though he tore his clothes and was in pain, he also started to laugh. They said to him, why are you laughing? They asked him why he's laughing. That's an obvious question. Why are you laughing under these conditions? He says to them, why are you crying? Isn't that obvious? Maybe he's asking them to get them to think. But they give the obvious answer. The place about which it's written that if a non-Kohen goes in, he automatically dies. Unfortunately, ask about this. All right. And now foxes are strolling there. We shouldn't cry. Because of the same vision that you see. You see the fox and I see the fox. But because of the fox, I'm laughing. Because there's a pasuk in Yeshayahu. Vo'iduli edim, I will take to myself witnesses, ne'emanim, faithful witnesses, es Uriah Kohen, ve'escharya ben Varchayahu. The two witnesses are Uriah, the Kohen, and Zechariah, two prophets. So now, Rabbi Kiva asks, why would Yeshayahu put these two people together when they're utterly distant from one another, have no relationship with one another? Uriah b'Mikdash Rishon. Uriah lived in the times of the first temple. Zechariah b'Mikdash Sheni, and Zechariah lived in the time of the second temple. Ela, says Rabbi Kiva, I'll tell you what Yeshaya Navi was doing by juxtaposing them. Tola akasa nevu aso shel Zechariah b'nevu aso shel Uriah. Yeshaya Navi is revealing to us that Zechariah's prophecy depends upon Uriah's prophecy. Uriah ksiv, what did Uriah prophesy? Lachem biglalchem tzion soda techoshev. Therefore, because of you, Kadosh Baruch Hu says to the Jewish people, Tzion will be like an empty field, an empty, useless, unproductive field. Zechariah ksiv, and the second prophecy in Zechariah, Od yeshvu zkenim v'zkenos b'chovos Yerushalayim. There will come a time when old men and old women will sit in the streets of Yerushalayim in peace, in comfort, in harmony, in security. Two very contrasting prophecies. So Rabbi Kiva goes on. Until I saw, as long as I didn't see the prophecy of destruction come true. I was afraid that the prophecy of rebuilding, reconstruction, peace, tranquility, ideal circumstances, I was afraid it wouldn't come true. Actually, now that I've seen that the prophecy of Uriah of destruction came true, it's known, positive, certain that the prophecy of Zechariah of the rebuilding comes true. And they said to him, Akiva nichamtanu, Akiva nichamtanu, Akiva, you have comforted us. So many commentators, I think every reader is puzzled. Rabbi Akiva had a doubt as to whether a prophecy would come true. Akiva had doubts about the prophets. How could that be? Okay, the pasuk in Yeshayahu juxtaposes the two of them. Who told you that that's why he juxtaposed it? To tell you that one depends upon the other? That if the one doesn't come true, the other one's not going to come true, and therefore it's all in doubt? Who told you that that's the right shot? And secondly, we understand somehow, Rabbi Akiva is telling us one is dependent upon the other, and now that I saw this one, I'm confident about that one. Why does that make you laugh now? That's something that will happen in the future someday. Okay, you could be comforted that this condition of churban, of destruction, is not forever. I understand that. But that gives you the impetus to laugh now, to rejoice now. So the Mefarshim take care of the first problem in a variety of ways. The author there says, Rabbi Akiva is medayik that Uriah is in Bayis Rishon, in the first temple, and Zachariah is in Bayis Sheni. Maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to us, you're living in the first temple, and you're failing, and I'm warning you that if you don't better your ways, there's going to be a terrible destruction. And I'm also telling you that after the destruction, there will be a rebuilding. But the rebuilding will be, I'll give you an opportunity for a rebuilding. An opportunity. If you take it, you'll have it. If you don't take it, you won't have it. And maybe that opportunity was when the Bayis Sheni was built, the second temple. And we didn't take it, and we didn't have it. All the promises for the rebuilding of the temple didn't come true in the second temple. And therefore you've lost it. And you're not going to get it back. Just as Hillel HaSheni, one of the Amoraim, said that the Jewish people cannot look forward to a Messiah. Because I gave you that chance with Chizkiyahu and you didn't take it. So it's over. I was promising you a chance. You failed to take it. It's over. But now that I see that the conditions of destruction continue as before, that Jerusalem and Zion again are abandoned and empty, and the prophecy of Uriah is in front of my eyes, so then I can say that the promise of the rebuilding that Zachariah talked about is something which we can look forward to. That's one way to say pshat. The Brisker Rav said another pshat, and as those of you who are Talmidei Chacham know, they don't exclude each other. They can both be true. The second pshat is this: the Rambam tells us that there are different categories of prophecy. Really, there are four categories based on two distinctions. A prophecy can prophesy something good or something bad. And it can be a prophecy to the prophet for himself, or it can be the prophecy through the prophet to others. Only one out of the four categories is absolute. Only one is a promise that must come true, and that is something that's good, promised through the prophet to others. The other three categories don't have to come true. In particular, any prophecy of something bad doesn't have to come true. The sense of the prophecy of something bad is that it's a warning. You're in a bad situation. If the bad situation continues and you don't turn around, then this will be the result. It's never an absolute prophecy. So, says Rabbi Akiva, since I have this principle behind in the Torah Shabbat, in the oral tradition, I can now look at the verse in Yeshayahu and say, why did Yeshayahu make a connection between the two prophecies? That's exactly what he meant. What he meant was, if you sink to the level where the prophecy of destruction comes true, which didn't have to happen, because you could have turned it around beforehand. But if it does come true, then the prophecy of rebuilding, which is of something good and something for the whole nation, that will come true, and that's absolute. That must happen. But it only must happen as a result of the destruction. The prophecy of something good in this case is rebuilding after destruction. Only if the destruction takes place will the rebuilding take place. So Rabbi Akiva said, I wasn't sure that the prophecy of rebuilding would take place because I wasn't sure that the destruction would take place. Now that I've seen the destruction with my own eyes, I know that the prophecy of rebuilding will come true as well. That explains why he saw them as dependent and why there was a doubt in his mind. Doesn't explain why he's laughing now. Doesn't explain why he's laughing now. It also doesn't explain why it says, I was afraid it wouldn't come true. I was afraid it wouldn't come true. Why should he be afraid? If the destruction never happens, then Yerushalayim and Eretz Yisrael and the Jewish people will continue on. And they won't have to go through the destruction in the first place. Why should he be looking forward and hoping for destruction and rebuilding rather than just continuing on without the destruction? I think the answer to that question is continuing on without the destruction, meaning continuing on as is. And how is? What condition were they in? They were not in this condition that Zechariah prophesied of an ideal circumstance where people grow old in Yerushalayim, happy, and they grow old secure, they grow old in harmony. Yes, we had our own military forces, we had our own economy, had our own king. That's not what Zechariah was picturing. And so therefore he said, that picture of an ideal circumstance in Yerushalayim, that I couldn't be sure of until I saw the terrible destruction that took place, that Uriah prophesied, and then now I could trust that I can be sure that will happen. But why is he laughing at the moment? The answer is that there is the possibility to see the rebuilding in the destruction. Not just to believe and envision it happening for the future, but to see it in the destruction. This I learned from a Pri Tzaddik and from a Beis Yisrael, both Hasidic Yisrael. There's another Chazal. Chazal say, Kol mes'abel al Yerushalayim zoche v'ro'eh b'binyanah. Anyone who mourns the destruction of Yerushalayim has the merit and sees the rebuilding. Not will see the rebuilding, but sees the rebuilding. And he's medayik from what Rabbi Kiva said. Rabbi Kiva said, Achshav, now that the prophecy of Uriah of destruction has taken place, in the present tense, not yiskayim in the future, but in the present tense, it's coming true. It's coming true now. How can you see that? How can you understand it and perceive it, experience it? It's coming true now. One way is the very fact that there are Jews who are wailing and mourning the destruction of Yerushalayim. That mourning is itself a brick out of which the rebuilding will be made. The very fact that we are sitting here after 2,000 years, I don't know how many seats, the keynotes, it's very, very long. I didn't say them all either. I couldn't keep up. But there's one line which every year gets to me. It says, Yerushalayim is speaking, Hine ani aluva, I'm abandoned, Yoser me'elef shana, more than 1,000 years. Think of the writer of that lamentation. Think of saying it. You know how long it's been? It's been more than 1,000 years. To that person, in those ears, we're ringing an impossibility, and we're sitting almost 2,000 years later. And we're still abandoned. Klal Yisrael is still abandoned. Eretz Yisrael is still abandoned. Every time I think of him saying it 1,000 years ago, it's more than 1,000 years. We're still saying it today. But that very sensitivity, that sense of loss, is the brick with which it will be built. You have to see each Jew who's wailing over the Churban HaBayis, the destruction of the temple. His experience is like a brick. And those bricks are being stored in a warehouse. And they're different sizes and shapes. There are round ones that will go into this wall, and there are flat ones that will go into the foundation. They're being built, they're being categorized and stored, identified, and the warehouse is building. We're building it now. The very fact that we are bewailing the destruction of Yerushalayim is the building that's taking place now. Now, of course, you have to be very gifted to see that. You have to be a very deep person to see that. When Rabbi Kiva explained this to them, and he asked them, why are you crying? He's telling them, your crying is superficial. You're not seeing that after tearing our clothes and feeling the pain, we should be responding to the rebuilding that's going on now. Doesn't say that they laughed. Doesn't say that they laughed. They heard what he was doing. They stood in awe of him that he could be on such a level. Is this available to us? Can we experience something like that? So says the Pritzadik and the Beis Yisrael, we had that opportunity yesterday. Because yesterday was Tisha B'Av, not today. And what did we do yesterday? We ate and we drank, we feasted, we rejoiced. All of it on Tisha B'Av. Kadosh Baruch Hu gives us the opportunity every few years to experience on our own something of what Rabbi Akiva experienced. In Bayis Sheni, in the second temple, Tisha B'Av was a holiday because they had the temple back. They were doing the avodah, the service in the temple. We too have the opportunity every few years to celebrate on Tisha B'Av. To see that, and we're sensitive, we understand what we're doing, we say to ourselves, this is what the Tisha B'Av on Shabbos means. Indeed, the Beis Yisrael is Madaik. The Shulchan Aruch writes about the meals on yesterday, Shabbos Tisha B'Av. Ma'ale al shulchano kishloma b'shato. Ochel v'shoisa, eat and drink, and pour on your table like King Solomon in the height of his reign. This is a picture of luxury, unlimited luxury. Don't hold anything back. Don't think, it's Shabbos, but it's Tisha B'Av, we lost the temple, I'll drink a second-class wine. Or I won't take out the watermelon. Or, because it's in the end, it's Tisha B'Av. No, not at all. Not at all. You have to be able to celebrate. Now, what are you celebrating? So this is a taste of what Rabbi Akiva was talking about. That the fact is that you can see the rebuilding in the destruction. When it's Tisha B'Av on the calendar, and we're celebrating, we're already anticipating the rebuilding. Beis Yisrael takes this a step further. And he says, what do you mean you should eat and drink like Solomon in his day? Solomon in his day had the temple. He built the temple. It was standing. You have to be able to feel as if this temple is already standing. That's a deeper projection of what Rabbi Akiva felt. He could feel it in its glory because he saw the elements of rebuilding it being collected, stored, identified, prepared. And every few years we're given an opportunity to do that. Beis Yisrael pushes this a step further. There's a Gemara that says, Kolo oichel b'Tisha B'Av, anybody who eats on Tisha B'Av, Ki'ilu ochal b'Yom Kippurim. It's as if he eats on Yom Kippur. And those of you who learn Gemara know, and then Beis Yisrael quoted, Ein hekesh l'mechza. When you have a comparison that links two ideas in this way, the comparison is supposed to be total. You don't compare for just one isolated feature, one just isolated point. You compare across the board that there should be a full identity between them. So he says, what about what's written about Tisha B'Av, about Yom Kippur, Kolo oichel b'tshii ki'ilu his'ana tshii v'asiri. Because the Torah tells us that the fast of Yom Kippur starts on the 9th, me'erev ad erev, from the evening of the 9th to the evening of the 10th, the Gemara understands it to mean that if you should eat on the 9th of Tishrei, the day before Yom Kippur, then it's as if you fasted the 9th and the 10th. Now, there's a lot of literature on that, but the idea is the Shari Tshuva, Ben Yonah says that eating on the 9th, there's a formal meal, formal banquet on the 9th, has three meanings. One is that you should have the strength to be able to go through Yom Kippur. The second is that you're celebrating the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought you to the time when you can do tshuva, and your tshuva will be accepted, and all of your faults will be repaired. You'll be forgiven for everything that you've done. It's a banquet of gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the third reason for the meal on the 9th of Tishrei, the day before Yom Kippur, is that Yom Kippur is a day of joy. It's a day of simcha. Cancels Avelis, for those of you who know, it cancels Avelis. It's got to be simcha. It's a joy of simcha, and there's no simcha without su'udah, without a banquet. Real Hasidic idea, right? Yeah, we'll claim Rabbeinu Yonah as a chassid, no question. Right? There's no such thing as simcha without a Suda, but you can't eat on Yom Kippur. So this is the meal of rejoicing of Yom Kippur, but it's on the 9th rather than the 10th. Chazal say anybody who eats on the 9th is as if he fasts on the 9th and the 10th. Whatever you can accomplish with fasting, you can accomplish more with eating correctly, appropriately. And it's as if it was a double fast, 9th and 10th. So the Beis Yisrael asks, can we do that with Tisha Bav? The Gemara linked Yom Kippur and Tisha Bav. Can we have such a reality? He said, yes, this year. This year. Because on the 9th of Av, we ate and drank. And it was a mitzvah to do so. And the commemoration of the destruction of the temple took place on the 10th, today. And then we could say, anyone who ate and drank on the 9th of Av, with the idea in mind that you are celebrating the current rebuilding of the temple, because Jews still remember, Jews are still hoping, then it would be as if you had fasted on the 9th and the 10th. I want to review with you briefly what we lost in the Beis HaMikdash and how we can try to put a little bit of our merit into the rebuilding. Of course, everybody knows the Beis HaMikdash was the place of bringing korbanos, of bringing offerings to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I try to be consistent, not always successful, not to use the word sacrifice. The word sacrifice does great injustice to the Jewish institution and to the words that are used. In English, sacrifice means I lost something. I have less. I've given up something. There's no word in Hebrew that carries that meaning. Korban means an agency of drawing close, karov. Mincha means gift. Gift just means I give it to the other party and I don't charge. It doesn't say that I lost something. I have less. So the word sacrifice is really a wrong word to use. Offering is a much better word. We lost a place in which we could offer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what we all associate with the Beis HaMikdash. But the truth is that there are two other associations which are absolutely crucial for us. It's a famous pasuk. It became famous because it's a famous song. V'haviosim el har kodshi, I will bring them to my holy mountain. V'simachtim beveis tfilosi, I will cause them to rejoice in the house of my prayer. Olosihem zivchehem al rotor hamizbechi, their offerings will find favor on the altar. Ki beisi beis tfilah yikarei l'chol ha'amim, because my house will be called a house of prayer for all peoples. House of prayer, sacrifices, house of prayer. What's going on? Yeshaya Navi calls the Beis HaMikdash house of prayer twice. In the middle, he inserts that yes, the offerings will be on the altar. It sounds like the title of the place in which you give offerings to God is the house of prayer. And if you will take out Sefer Malachim and read where Shlomo HaMelech built the temple, and he gives a dedication, a long dedication of what the building is supposed to stand for, what purpose it's supposed to serve, you will see King Solomon mentions only one function, and that's prayer. Nowhere in his dedication does he mention sacrifices, offerings. Never. We have to understand that offerings on the one hand and prayer on the other hand are two halves of the same coin. And that's why Chazal linked prayers to the offerings. The times, the number, or the laws are based on the laws of the offerings. Because when we daven, when we pray, what we're really doing is we're offering ourselves to a HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's a single, integrated performance of offering. The priests in the temple are doing their jobs, and we are accompanying them with a national experience of offering ourselves to a HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why, at the end of every tefillah, of every prayer, we immediately pray for the rebuilding of the temple. Because it's supposed to be one integrated performance, one integrated effort, and we've lost half of it. It's interesting. The Gemara says that the Chazal made the prayers corresponding to the offerings. Kineged korbanos tiknu, corresponding. The Shulchan Aruch says that the tefillos are bimkom korbanos, in the place of the korbanos. And from here comes a great misunderstanding. People think that we have organized prayer because we lost the offerings in the temple, and we use this to replace them. That's absolutely false. It's absolutely false. Because by Sheni, when the second temple was standing, we had organized prayer for 420 years, together with all the offerings, together with the functioning temple. And that's why Chazal don't say in place of. They say corresponding to. When the Anshe Knesset Gedolah set up the institution of prayer, they set it up to correspond to the offerings that were alive, that were going on. But once we lost the temple, so then we're like on crutches. It's like a person with a sprained ankle. He can't use that foot. So he goes on crutches and he hobbles. We have left of prayer and offerings, we have only prayer. So prayer has to do double duty. But not because it's replaced, and not as if, since we have prayer now, therefore we don't need offerings, as the misunderstanding of the Guide of the Perplexed has it. Rambam never said that. So we have to realize, as we do at the end of every prayer, we pray for the rebuilding of the temple, that this was a gesture, but it was incomplete. And we have to try, when we're davening, not only to wait to the Yiratzon at the end, but to feel, I'm trying to connect to you, Rebbeinu Shalom. I want to be heard. I want to feel that I'm connected to you, and I know that the key instrument for that purpose, which was the temple, is gone, and therefore I feel an extra need for help, extra need to try harder to be able to connect. That's the Beis HaMikdash as an instrument for tefillah. And also, I think this is also not appreciated, but we say it in that same prayer every time. We say at the end of every tefillah, Yiratzon she'yivana Beis HaMikdash b'mheirei yameinu, let it be your will that the temple be rebuilt quickly in our days. V'sein chelkeinu b'sorasecha. Give us our portion in your Torah. What is that doing there? What is that doing there? Tefillah, you have korbanos, offerings, and all of a sudden, in the middle of asking for the temple to be rebuilt, we're asking for our portion in Torah. The answer is that the temple was also a tzinor, a pipeline that delivered Torah to the world. And without the temple, we're missing a connection of Torah to Kodesh Baruch Hu. Also, one indication of it is the fact that the Sanhedrin's home base was the chamber, whose back wall was the wall of the courtyard of the temple, Lishkas HaGozis. As long as that was the official site of the Sanhedrin, we could try capital cases anywhere in the world. The capital case is tried with a court of 23, and can try it anywhere in the world, and execute anywhere in the world. Only when the Sanhedrin is there. The Sanhedrin left there and went into 10 places of exile before it disappeared hundreds of years later. During that period of time, we couldn't try cases of capital punishment, now for the aficionados, unless the Sanhedrin would temporarily go back, which Tosfos said it did from time to time, which means that after the official Gola started, there could still be, and there still were, some isolated cases of capital punishment, which answers up also Eish and other things as well. What does it mean that we can't try capital cases? You're deciding whether to take a Jew's life. Without that pipeline of Torah feeding the emes of Torah to the world, we can't take responsibility for that. So when you sit down to learn a Blat Gemara, and you're learning a Tosfos, and a Rebbe Kiva Eiger, and it's going hard, it's not clear. The Zohar says every unanswered kasha is a blockage. It's a blockage of the flow. You have to give a little krechts and say, one of the reasons why I'm not getting it, and we're not getting it, the Rosh Hashiva sometimes ends his shir with kashas also, that he can't answer. One of the reasons we're not getting it is because the Beis HaMikdash isn't here. And when we say the Yiratzon, we say V'seinchol Kene B'Sorasecha, think of the unanswered kashas. Think of the difficulties. Think of the things that aren't clear, that aren't explained. And think, that's in part because of the loss of the Beis HaMikdash. And to think, when you finish that, you close the Gemara, give a krecht. Oy, if only we had the Beis HaMikdash, we'd have a much better grasp of Torah. That consciousness, that continuous consciousness of the loss of the Beis HaMikdash is one of the things that the Kodesh Baruch Hu looks at and he says, Ami, you're still my people. You still know where the emes is. You know what you're missing. You know what has to be rebuilt. You haven't given up. And I want to make a remark. Every year at this time, there are endless articles by the clever scholars who say that mourning the destruction of Yerushalayim in these days is ridiculous. Have you been there? Have you seen the rebuilt Jerusalem? There's nothing to mourn. I have a very simple observation for them. When we daven for the rebuilding of Yerushalayim in the Shema Esrei, Yerushalayim ircha barachmim toshuv, Sishchon b'socha kasher dibarta, uvnei oisa binyan olam. That prayer has three clauses. The first clause is come back to Yerushalayim. The second clause is dwell in Yerushalayim. And the third clause is and rebuild Yerushalayim. Rebuilding Yerushalayim doesn't mean putting together bricks and laser connections and soccer and classical music concerts and a concert hall and art museums. Rebuilding Yerushalayim means bringing the Shekhinah back to Yerushalayim. And yes, after bringing the Shekhinah back to Yerushalayim, build a housing that expresses the glory of the Shekhinah. But without the Shekhinah, the buildings aren't Binyan Yerushalayim. They aren't built out of the Avelis of Jews over the thousands of years. It's not the bricks of our tears that are building concert halls. They have lost their touch with Ruchnius entirely, people who write articles like that. They measure things in terms of stories of bricks. Chaval. The last thing I want to share with you, we read in Haftorah this morning, heartbreaking Haftorah, the accumulation of failures of the Jewish people with the Nigun of Eicha, but the last two psukim are linked with a regular Nigun of a Haftorah. That's where you're stepping up to hope, to an analysis of where the challenge is for us. What does Yirmiyahu Novi say? Kol amar Hashem, Al yishalel chacham b'chachmaso, let the wise not glory in his wisdom. Al yishalel gibor gvuraso, let the powerful not glory in his power. Al yishalel osher b'oshro, let not the rich glory in his wealth. Ki im bezos yishalel l'mishalel. Rather, with this and this alone, a person should glory, yes, mishalel, praise himself, experience self-praise. Haskel v'yadoa osi. Analyzing, and yadoa means experiencing. Analyzing intellectually and experiencing me, says the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Ki ani Hashem, for I am Hashem, oseh chesed mishpat utzedakah ba'aretz. I do loving kindness. Mishpat in Hebrew means din and rachamim. It means justice with mercy. And tzedakah and charity. Ba'aretz, in the earth, in the land, ki ve'elu chafatzinu Hashem, because this is what I want, says the Kodesh Baruch Hu. This is what pleases me, to see these things. I think there are three levels here. The Mepharshim talk about the middle level. A person is wise, or powerful, or rich. Chazal say, if you are told that the nations of the world have wisdom, believe it, it's true. What attitude should a person have towards his wisdom, towards his power, and towards his money, his wealth? The lowest level is, I've got something good. I'm well off. I'm doing great. Fine. Things are great. Because I've got really valuable stuff. That's the level of an animal. A slightly smarter squirrel, as evolution would have us believe we are. That's the level of an animal. A lion enjoys a fresh carcass. It's the lioness that does the hunting, and then the lion comes and takes it from her. And a squirrel enjoys wonderful acorns, and this animal enjoys his wisdom and his power and his money. A level up from that is where a person says, but where did it come from? It came from the Kodesh Baruch Hu. So I have to recognize it came from the Kodesh Baruch Hu. I have to be grateful that it came from the Kodesh Baruch Hu. That's a level up. But it's only one level up. The picture here is the king is in his palace. He has control over all resources, and you need something, so you send him a petition, and 3 months later you get a letter back. Yes, I granted your petition. Come to the entrance to the palace, and you'll get what you're asking for. You come to the entrance of the palace, someone from inside reads your notes. Oh yes, this is for you. Opens the door. He opens the gate to the palace, hands you the package, and says, goodbye, and slams the door shut. You'll be thankful. You should be thankful. You should have gratitude. You should express gratitude. But the door is slammed shut and you're outside. That's the second level. The third level is the person who says, there's only one thing worth understanding, worth experiencing, worth working with, worth working for, and that's the Kodesh Baruch Hu. And I want to be connected to him. And I want to see that the Chochmah that I have is a bridge to connect to him. It's not a gift to me outside the palace with the door slammed in my face and I go home and use it for my benefit. No, it's a key to come in. He gives me a chokhmah, I learn it, I come to the door and I say, please, I'm studying it. I have difficulty understanding. Would you teach me? Would you teach me? So it becomes a bridge. Gvura, what battles do need to be fought? Show me them. Show me the strategy. And I'll go out and represent you for it. Money, what needs to be built? Show me. Give me a signature. This is what you want with the money, and I'll go out and I'll do it. I want to be connected to you. I want to be representing you. We say in the morning, several times in Shachris, the phrase, Lihishtabeach b'sehila secha. Literally, and some of the portions of the Tanakh take it that way, literally, Lishtabeach means to praise myself. B'sehila secha, in your praise. The picture of the words is, I'm praising Kodesh Baruch Hu, and by praising Kodesh Baruch Hu, I'm praising myself. How does that work? Imagine you meet someone you don't know, you ask him, what do you do? And he says, I am a prime minister. That's what I do. You say, oh yes, you're prime minister? Of what country are you prime minister? And now everything hangs on the answer. If he says prime minister of Great Britain, that's something. If he says prime minister of Patagonia, that's something else. It depends upon what country you're prime minister of. Now you meet a person who's praising Great Britain, how great and how powerful and how wonderful and creative, and you say to him, why are you so interested in praising Great Britain? He said, because I am the prime minister of Great Britain. So you understand, when he's praising Great Britain, he's praising himself, because he's the prime minister of such a great country. That makes him great. If you represent the Kodesh Baruch Hu, then when you praise the Kodesh Baruch Hu, you're praising yourself. You're saying, look whom I represent. Look what I stand for. Look what I'm connected to. Yirmiyahu Navi says, Al Yishal HaMishal B'Chochmaso. And by the way, one of the first Medayik, why did it say B'Chochmaso? If you said Al Yishal HaChocham, the Chocham shouldn't praise himself. What would he be praising himself for? He'd be praising himself for his wisdom, otherwise why call him a Chacham? But B'Chochmaso means he thinks it's his own. He thinks he created it for himself. He's on the first level, the lowest level. No, you mustn't do that. But if you're praising your wisdom and your strength and your riches because they are vehicles by which you can connect to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, that you're increasing your relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, yes, be mishalel. Take praise from that. Feel a privilege in that. It's right to be mishalel. The Gra, his famous Perush on Eshes Chaim, where it says, Sheker Achein v'Hevel Yofi, Isha Yiras Hashem Hitis Hala. Charm and beauty are false and empty. the woman who fears Hashem should be praised. And he asks Akasha, doesn't the Torah praise the beauty of Sarah and Rivka and Rachel? So if the Torah itself praises their beauty, how could it be that it's empty, worthless, lies? Where is Shlomo Melech coming from when he says that? And he says, Tzarech Lomar, meaning that's his shot, that it means that the charm and the beauty are false and empty when there's no Yiras Shamayim behind it. The externals should reflect and express the internals. Tocho Kabaro, his inner self should be like his outer self. It is, it's degrading, utterly degrading, to have a vessel that's beautiful holding content that's ugly. So it's a jarring inappropriateness between the two. It would be as if you played music of happiness and triumph at a funeral. Any sensitive person would feel it was jarring. It was inappropriate. It was degraded. If you have a beautiful vessel and the character of the person is not a high character, it's utterly inappropriate. Chen and Yofi are appropriate for someone who wears it, whose inner life is Yiras Hashem. So he says the same as the pasuk in Yirmiyahu. If a person's wisdom and a person's might and a person's wealth express that connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then it's appropriate for them to have them and appropriate to be mishalal. I think this is the difference between two brachos that we say. When we see someone, a Jew or a non-Jew, who's a great mathematician or a great geologist or a great astronomer, we make a bracha on his wisdom. God gave of his wisdom to flesh and blood. This is standing outside the palace, making a petition, and the servant comes to the door and says, yes, you're worthy, here's mathematics. Injection into his brain, slam the door, go home. Nosan echachmos. He gave it. What does it say about Torah knowledge, Torah wisdom? Cholak mechachmoso v'yirav. He took a chelik. It's a chelik of his own. It's part of his own. When you have that chelik, you're related to the whole, of which it's a chelik. He gave it to the Le'erav. For them, he invites them in. We're looking forward to a time when the Kodesh Baruch Hu will give us the gifts on the third level, and we can truly take praise in them. Praise in the fact that he wants us to join him in the palace, and he wants us to be able to be connected to him. With that hope, with that tefillah, we could then hopefully add to the schus that will bring Binyan Beis HaMikdash.